All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Josh Coker here, aka Joshmas Prime. You know what it is. Coming back at you with another episode of Polymathics, the channel that helps you become a modern day Renaissance man or woman. In this episode, we're going to discuss resources for reader magnets, specifically fiction reader magnets. Now, I know we're currently in this series about science fiction reader magnets, but the reason why I say fiction reader magnets is because I believe that this is one of the few episodes that really pertains to the broad scope of fiction writers and even some non-fiction writers. So I wanted to say that up front so that if you are a fiction writer but not necessarily science fiction, that you don't run away. I really think that the resources I'm about to share with you will help anybody who writes fiction and self-publishes. The next piece that I want to touch on is I'm wearing a hat because I have bad hair today. No, the next piece that I wanted to touch on is that I have primarily focused on YouTube resources only because you're currently on YouTube watching me, which means you probably found me on YouTube, which means you probably prefer to watch YouTube when learning. Maybe not all the time, but sometimes. Now, I have put a couple websites and books in as well, but the majority of these resources will be YouTube related. And then I want you to also, I'm going to do that sneaky trick where I tell you that there's something at the end that will be very beneficial to keep you to watch the end. And that's because, one, this is probably going to be longer, but two, there really is something beneficial for reader magnets that most people don't think about doing that I want to bring to your attention. So stay tuned for that. And then lastly, before we get into this, I just wanted to talk briefly about why I have created this particular episode. And in order to do that, first I have to tell you why I created this series. So when I found out roughly 2 years ago or so, I had almost finished 3 books that I have in my main series, my main flagship series for science fiction. I realized it became very apparent to me that I need a reader magnet. The problem was when I went and looked on how to write a reader magnet for science fiction, I didn't find anything. Or let's just say that what I found was not very helpful and it didn't really piece things together. And so that's why I'm creating this series. But then the question is, well, why are you creating this particular episode? Because you're going to go through all of those steps. Yes. However, what I want for you to have is just like in a book that you really love, you can go to the bibliography and see okay, where did they get this information from? Maybe there are other books in here that I want to read. Or maybe, when you watch your favorite podcasters and they tell you here's my book list, this would be my list of references that I would tell you to look into. And this is also why it's so important for just fiction readers fiction writers and even possibly non-fiction writers to listen to, is because the resources I'm going to share with you today and the people who came up with these tactics and strategies, they are not all science fiction writers. As a matter of fact, some of them are romance writers and thriller writers and things like that. So you may hear me touch on something throughout the series and say, where did Josh get that from? Or how can I expand on that? Or is there more information? Well, rather than you having to dig all around to figure out where I found this stuff, what I'm trying to do is give you a one-stop shop and say, hey, this is where you should look. And not only for reader magnets. It's my belief that the people I'm about to share with you, while they have the best information on reader magnets, that they're also just really good resources for self-published fiction writers in general. So I think that covers it. And if not, I'm sure I'll stop and make note of any other things that I need to. But that was the impetus behind this particular episode. And without further ado, let's go into here. And what I want to show you right here before we get into all of the resources is just, this is the reader magnet that I created based on the strategies from these resources. This reader magnet was released roughly 4 months ago, and as you can see, it's already generated 25 ratings. Now, some of you might say, oh, well, that's not that much. True, but you have to give it some context, right? This is a reader magnet going out to basically how can I put this? Like, there was no mailing list before this. Even though I'm an author that's written other books, I never deployed a mailing list, a newsletter strategy. And I'm shooting myself in the foot, and I wish that I had. But going forward, I know that this is very important. And anyways, I don't want to get too sidetracked. The point is that this is a very realistic expectation that you can get for releasing or for deploying these strategies that I'm going to show you in the series using these references that I'm showing. And the reason why I want to show you this up front is some of the people that you're going to see and some of the results that you might see in future videos can be a little overwhelming if you're just starting out. and you might be like me. You might be an author who has published books before and made money off of them, but has never deployed a newsletter strategy. And so seeing tons of reviews, thousands of reviews on certain books can be very overwhelming. But what I'm trying to show you here is, if I am ahead of you right now, that this is pretty realistic for someone who's just starting their newsletter, and that over time it will build. I'll tell you that in the first month, this actually probably generated about, I don't know, I'd have to look back, maybe 6 or 7 reviews. But the point is, like, they didn't all come at once. And for the first 2 weeks, there was like nothing. So you just have to be patient, and you have to give yourself time to grow. This, again, was released about 4 months ago. And then it is the prequel reader magnet to this book right here, which is the main book in the main series that I'm releasing. And as you can see, it's already got 2 ratings on Amazon. It's actually got 3. The third one, for whatever reason, isn't syncing with Amazon appropriately. It's probably something I got to call them about. But this is without notifying my readers on my newsletter yet. I'm trying to hold off on that until it's been out for about a month. This was released about a week and a half ago. So, again, I'm not saying that this is great, but what I'm saying is this is a realistic expectation you can have. And that over time, if you check back in, and as I check back in, you'll see that it will continue to grow. All right, so now let's talk about the people who have come up with these strategies that we're going to be using in this series. And the first place that I want to bring you to is what I believe is the most important. If you don't go anywhere else, I suggest you go here, which is the Six Figure Author Podcast. Now, for those of you who are familiar with this podcast or this YouTube channel, you're probably asking yourself, Josh, why would you send me to a place where they stopped making videos? Well, it's because of 2 reasons. One, it still has the best information, in my opinion, on not just writing reader magnets, but also for self-publishing in general. And for those of you who haven't heard of these people before, this podcast is run by Lindsay Baroker, Joseph Lallo, and Andrea Pearson. And they're all great. They're all established, self-published authors that make six figures and have been in the industry for a long period of time. They have interviewed a ton of people. And as you can see by these red lines here, I have watched several hours of their stuff. And that's what I'm saying. This series is a compilation of all of that information and condensing it down into what is important for a science fiction reader magnet. But I highly recommend that you go through this. And what I wouldn't do is don't go in order. Okay? Look at the titles and then select the things that you're searching for. But I can guarantee you that you're going to find a ton of stuff that's good in here. The other thing that you'll find is that many of the authors that they have interviewed end up either being authors that I'm about to recommend in their own right, or authors that will have information that will be very beneficial to you for whatever genre that you write in. The last thing I'll say is that while they stopped publishing or releasing new videos about 6 months ago, they did recently come on and do a video about a month ago. And I foresee that probably every quarter or every 6 months, they'll probably come in with updates. From what I gather, the reason why they quit the podcast was because it was taking up too much time from and away from their businesses. And so they had to kind of refocus. So there's that. Now, after that, the next one that I would recommend is 20 Books to 50K. 20 Books to 50K is run by this gentleman right here, Michael Anderle, I believe. He is a self-published author that has created a publishing business and has been so successful that he then created this, I think it's a nonprofit, but basically what they do is they put out videos and interview authors from all different genres and levels and stuff like that. Some of them are traditionally published, some of them are hybrid, some of them are self-published. But every year they have an event in Vegas where they have keynote speakers and give presentations. And that's what you're seeing right here. And they're really great. They're wonderful. I feel really bad. Somebody needs to put me on blast. Leave it in the comment section down below. I forget who this gentleman's name is right here. Craig. No, it's Craig. Oh, I wish I could remember. He, in his own right, does a lot of great material and puts out a lot of great material. And the two of them pretty much run this. But what I want to bring your attention to in regards to what references I used is if you look at the 20 Books to 50K, the 20 Books Vegas 2021, which was their live event last year, and then you'll probably see 2019. There is a lot of information in those two. And here we'll just go to this one, 2021. If you go in here, you're going to find tons of videos on self-publishing, and some of them will be on reader magnets. For example, one that I like a lot is this one by Mal Cooper, Finding and Keeping Fans. There are more though. There are quite a few more. Another one, I don't know if it's in 2021, but I think there's definitely one in 2019, is they interview Damon Courtney. Damon Courtney is the founder and creator of BookFunnel, which is basically the tool that you will use in order to get your reader magnet out to the most people possible in the most efficient way possible, using the strategies that I'm going to show you later on in the series. So, and just another side note, these guys also interviewed Damon as well. So, and if you looked up, so he doesn't have his own BookFunnel playlist, YouTube channel, but if you typed in here Damon Courtney BookFunnel, you will see a lot of interviews, and I would highly recommend those as well. Now, what I have not watched yet are all of these 2022 live event videos, and that's because, as you can see, they only came out about, I mean, this one came out 3 hours ago, but they've only been coming out in the last 2 weeks because that's when they had the live event. And I really wished I could go, and I think I'm going to go next year. But unfortunately, I had family obligations this year that prevented me from going. So there's that. All right, now let's go to number 3, Mr. Fox, Mr. Chris Fox. Now, I bring Chris Fox up for many reasons. Number one is, if there is someone that you might say that I followed their template, it would be him. One, it's because Chris writes in the same genre as I do, and he writes very similar to the way that I do. Two, as you can see, he's got other books on, like nonfiction books on writing. And Right to Market is actually one of the best ones that I've ever read. And it's specifically geared towards fiction writers for self-publishing. So again, highly recommend. Now, this is another channel that's not very active anymore. Chris has been very successful in the last few years. From what I gather, I don't want to say he got bored with his channel, but he decided to focus his efforts on more things that were more interesting to him. And he does come on here every once in a while. As you can see, he came on 4 months ago and did how he's marketing fantasy. But I'm telling you, aside from, like, if you look in here about reader magnets, you'll find 1 or 2 bangers in there. But you'll also, again, just find tons of great information on self-publishing. If you're new to writing and you haven't really found your voice yet, or you feel like, for example, how do I write a magic system? That would be great. That would be a great video for you. For those of you who are more experienced, you already kind of have written books and you know your voice, you may not find these as helpful in terms of the craft aspect. But when it comes to the nonfiction part, like the strategy, tactics, all of that stuff, writing faster, this is an invaluable resource, and I have to reiterate, do not overlook this. As a matter of fact, it's so important, I believe, that I also have his website up as well. And the reason why I brought his website up is because if I were going to have you follow any of these people's websites in terms of how to give out reader magnets on your website, Chris's would be, in my opinion, one of the best examples I've seen. As you can see, if you come to his website, ChrisFoxWrites.com, very first thing at the very top, he's got 3 reader magnets that are available. 2 are fiction and 1 is nonfiction. And then what's interesting is if you click on the button to download, you actually get an option of 4 fiction books. So I've already subscribed, so you're not going to see exactly what will come up. But if you wanted to see what his process was, you could check it out. Now, another thing I'm going to say here too is, like, I have read Chris's Magitech Chronicles books, and I really enjoyed them. If you're a science fiction reader, I would highly, highly recommend you read his stuff. I haven't read his fantasy, but I have a sneaking suspicion based on all the great reviews that he's gotten. You should check those out as well. And here's why. It's not just for the indulgence of having fun entertainment, but also as a marketing strategy, you need to read some of the people who write what you write and see how they're doing things. And so not only did I just thoroughly enjoy reading Magitech, I think I'm on book 2 right now, about midway through book 2, but I really enjoyed seeing how Chris took the strategies that he had in Right to Market. This isn't Right to Market, but and then deployed them in a science fiction genre book. And you could do the same thing with fantasy. Okay. Now, this next one is Evan Gao. And I actually only recently have been put on to Evan Gowan. As you can see, I've already watched several of his videos. And it's because he is the developer of Story Origin. Some of you might say, well, what is Story Origin? If you ask me, there's two tools that you can use for your reader magnets, Story Origin and BookFunnel. I actually prefer BookFunnel a little more. That guy Damon Courtney we were talking about, he created that. But Evan created Story Origin, and it's got some different nuances to it, not only with how you deal with reader magnets, but also with other things. And the thing that I really like that he has is he has a beta reader review process that you can use, and he also has a review book process, an ARC team building process that you can use by going to his website, which we'll get to later. But the reason why I bring up his channel is because he interviews authors that have used Story Origin and discusses strategies where they used reader magnets in order to build subscribers. Look, 3,000 subscribers in a month, 200 reviews on Amazon, cheap mailing list building experiments. These are all, I think, worthwhile. And so I would go ahead and check those out. All right, next on the list is Nick Stephenson. Now, for me, I've never read any of Nick's books, but he makes great videos. And he's a New York Times bestseller, if I recall correctly. And he also, I don't think he's released a science fiction, but he's about to release a science fiction. The thing about Nick that is great is he has a whole series on how he used a reader magnet to become a New York Times bestseller. And that same strategy that he deployed to do that is the strategy that I have deployed for mine. Now, it's a little bit more advanced than some of you may be willing to do because it requires more than one reader magnet. I think it requires 2 reader magnets. And mine, I actually made 3, but that was my own personal preference. We'll discuss that in later episodes. But the point is, sorry, let me go back to his page here. He will walk you through that process that he used. And even though I have tweaked the process for my own personal means, and we'll describe that later, you may find in these videos that he had some tactics, tips, and strategies that I didn't necessarily use that might be beneficial to you. And I also believe he writes thrillers as well. So if you're not a science fiction writer, you may pick up things just on the thriller aspect. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. So the next one is NewsletterNinja, aka Tammy Labrecque. Now, as you can see, there actually aren't that many videos on this YouTube channel. I'm just showing you that there is one for NewsletterNinja. This lady, Tammy Labrecque, has been interviewed by both six-figure authors, 20 books to 50K, and another person that we're going to get to later, Joanna Penn. But the reason why I'm bringing her up is because this book called NewsletterNinja is essentially the Bible when it comes to how to use your reader magnets to then, not necessarily how to use your reader magnets, but once you've gotten the email address from your reader magnet, how to use your mailing list to then build a relationship with those readers that you've found. And everybody swears by, I swear by, I think they're great strategies, tips, tactics, whatever you want to call them. And you can get them with her book. Now, you can see this book was released in 2022. So not too long ago. Already 220 ratings. I can't believe it's been that long. Like, I remember when this book wasn't out yet. The NewsletterNinja 1 is also very good. I would get both of them. I've read the first one. I'm about halfway through this one. Highly recommend. Great tips and strategies for you to turn those emails into relationships with your readers so that you keep getting them to come back. All right. Moving along. Now, the last person on our list is Joanna Penn, aka the Creative Penn. And I put her on here for a couple different reasons. One, Joanna is probably the first self-published author that I found when I started way back in the day, like around 2013, 2014, who really had a channel put together to explain to authors how to do things. And things have evolved and changed over time. But the thing that's great about her is she's interviewed quite a few of the people that I've discussed on this list today. She may have one or two videos that are about reader magnets, but just in general, she's one of the top people to follow when it comes to anything indie publishing and also anything book industry related. But the other reason why I think it's so important, and let me see if I can find an example here. I don't know if I have it on here. Let me see if maybe on here. Yeah, okay. So right here you can see this is her AI art for authors. Now this was of interest to me, and I get it. That's not reader magnet related, but how does this relate? So aside from the fact that she's involved with all of these other authors here that we've discussed, she is really on the cutting edge of what's going on in the industry right now and what's projected for the future. And so if you plan on using AI art, or if you plan on creating a generational wealth with your books for your family, and you want to create a trust and things like that, she's discussed all these things in here. And then why that relates to reader magnets is, as the technology develops over the next few years, reader magnets are not going to change dramatically. It will still be, you create something free that you give to your readers to then show them the value that you have as a writer. Okay, that will always stay the same. But the mechanisms and the vehicles that we provide those to the readers will change. Two of which I think will be NFTs and the blockchain. Those are two mechanisms in which they will change the way reader magnets are used in the future. And while I have my thoughts on them, she really has a good bead on what's going on in the community, and she interviews a lot of the authors who are on the cutting edge of that kind of stuff. So highly recommend you check out this channel as well. And then I think we are almost done here. Now, one of the last places I'm going to show you is BookFunnel. Like I said, Damon Courtney created this. I'm not going to walk you through all of this. There's tons of tutorials out there on how to use this. Later on in another episode, I'll kind of do a brief kind of roll through of how this gets used. But BookFunnel does, in its FAQ and stuff like that, it will talk about like how to use the reader magnets, how to secure ARC readers, new readers, direct sales. You can even do one of the cool things that they recently rolled out was audio reader magnets. And that's something I haven't even touched yet, but I'm sure it's going to be great, and I can't wait to use it. And this tool is really what allows you to do everything else. This is quintessential. And then the only other one that also, by the way, I think it's like $100 or $150 for the year. 100% worth it. If you're going to invest in anything as an author, aside from, of course, book covers, this is the place to do it. And then the only other alternative you might have is Story Origin. Again, my preference is actually BookFunnel. But Story Origin has some other similar tools. And again, it also has other tools for like review copies and things like that I think are very beneficial and helpful. Let's see. All right. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the episode, I promised you that there would be a tip that people aren't using for their reader magnets that they really should. And that tip is using Linktree in your social media. Now, for those of you that don't know, again, this applies mainly for people who have social media accounts, particularly if you have an Instagram account. Then this becomes very beneficial, because what you can do is, with just putting one link in your social media account, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Facebook, someone can click on it and it takes them to Linktree, where you can have all of your links. And I mean, you see I have over 10 here. You can have as many as you want. It's my understanding. And so what I can do is, as I drive traffic to, by the way, this is a new Instagram account. This isn't my main one. I recently separated my personal from my author page, just because I wanted a little bit more compartmentalization. But so what you'll see here is that they can click on that and they can go here, and the very first thing I have is get a link to the free book, The Hidden Power, My Reader Magnet. So that is the same book that they could get here on Amazon. But you have to ask yourself, what if Joe Schmo, who's trolling Instagram looking for science fiction stuff, doesn't go on, man, that is so annoying. They don't go on Amazon, right? What if they find me through Instagram or some other social media? Well, now this still allows them to download the reader magnet and then get into the newsletter, where then I can start building that relationship with them. And then you can see too, I have a link to the Amazon book right here, and various other links, other books and stuff like that. So highly recommend that if you are an author and you have social media, that you use Linktree and combine it with the reader magnet strategies that we're going to discuss in later videos. And then one last little tip, you can also include this at the end of your emails in your newsletter, so that instead of you saying like, hey, check out this book and this book and this website and that website, you can just say, if you want to find out more about me, click this link. And then it will bring them to all of this stuff. And then they can choose what they want to do. All right. And then the very last thing I'm going to show you is something I made for you. And that is this fiction reader magnets. And the reason I made this is because, as you can see, there are hundreds of hours of content that I have gone through and distilled in order to create this series that we're in right now. And what I'm trying to do is make it easier for you to find stuff. And one of the ways I'm doing that is I created this little reader magnet book here that basically will tell you ideas for reader magnets. So as you can see, you have your top 10 lists from one of your characters. And then what I explain in each of these is what the general word length would be, the price, when you would use it, what kind of fans it's good for, all of that stuff. Where you would put it in the book that you're putting the link in. And the reason is so that, one, you have as many options and tools available as possible. And two, you don't spin your wheels trying to recreate the wheel. It took me a long time. And the reason why I put this list together too is, in all those hours of research that I did watching these various authors, it would be maybe halfway through the interview, they mentioned, oh yeah, a great idea would be to do a poetry diary from a character or a how-to guide from a character. Well, if you didn't watch that entire thing, you didn't get that idea. And what I have is, I believe, 15 or 20, maybe even over 20 different ideas for reader magnets with this kind of information in here of where, when, and how to use the reader magnet, and even some pricing ideas. So if you think that's beneficial, then you can go ahead and I've created a reader magnet for this so that you can get it. That way you and I can start building a relationship. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that I haven't even created a newsletter follow-up for this yet. And it's probably going to be a while forward. But as I begin to create more tools and materials for authors that are along this vein, I will have, emails go out periodically, maybe once a quarter or so, or once every month, that just touch on not necessarily reader magnets, but like what are some good tools that a self-publishing author can use for building their brand. So if you want to get this, if you like something like this, go ahead and I'll leave a link to this in the description down below. And then lastly, finally, what I will say is if you found this video helpful, like, share, subscribe. And if you think I missed something, if there's another resource out there that I'm unaware of, because there are so many things out there, then go ahead and drop that link down below so that you can share it with this community that we're building. And then if you think I've maybe forgotten something, or there's something I should bring up, or there are questions that you have based on what I've gone through, or that you'd like to have answered in later episodes, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know, and we will get to that. But for those of you that stayed, thank you for staying. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, keep reaching for your full potential and take it easy.